Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be with everyone here and as part of such a distinguished panel. And I look forward to hearing all the presentations and to your feedback on what I will be saying. So, today I will be talking about an initiative that we've been working on for the last 8 years. It's called Athar Lina, which roughly translates as Heritage is Ours, and it is based in historic Cairo. Historic Cairo is a World Heritage Site, and it's one of I think it's the largest of all the World Heritage Sites, and it has quite a few problems because of that. And the area we're working in is the southern section of Historic Cairo, where you see the numbers 2, 3, and 5. We basically work in the area around the citadel and also in Cairo's historic cemeteries, which are very distinguished because they are living cemeteries. They're a mix of graves and also residential areas, etc. And we work in 3 neighborhoods there: Al Khalifa Street, Al Hattaba, and Al Shafi'i. The entire area is called the Khalifa District after Al Khalifa Street. We're interested in working there because of what we see as a very unique and transactional relationship between people and their heritage. Um, and our idea was, the beginning of our work there was to ask this basic question: who owns heritage? And is it people who own it? Maybe they should. If they don't, how can they? How can they feel that they own it? Could it be something related to benefit, that if you benefit from something and you think of it as a resource, then you would fight to claim it as your own? These are all questions that we asked over 6 months in 2012 with a bunch of different people from different stakeholder types, residents and government officials, and also what we loosely call civil society. And at the end of it, we came up with first the recognition of the fact that if we're going to ask this question about the Khalifa, and if we're going to take people's time and pick their brains, especially the residents, and ask them to think with us, we cannot simply leave. We should stay and use what we have learned to do something. And we felt that there are potentially 3 action lines. First, heritage education for women and for children in particular, but then we added women, because we felt that ownership of heritage should be fostered at a young age and at the level of the entire family. We also felt that conservation, in the traditional sense of the word, that you work on a listed monument and you restore it and you maintain it, etc., is still important, and we should work on it. But we should also think of what these buildings will be used for, and work on ideas for adaptive reuse. And the third approach, or the third line of action, was for us the most vital and also the most problematic, which is grounding heritage in the socioeconomics of the urban context, and linking it to the improvement of quality of life and urban space. And we basically work along these lines in 2 fields: urban development or regeneration and heritage industries. So this was a short video just to give you an idea about the kind of work that we do. And since 2012, we have worked on the conservation of 3 listed heritage sites, and we're working currently on 2 other conservation projects. We've also renovated 2 unlisted historic buildings from the 19th and the early 20th century, one of which we currently, both of which actually we use as for our activities and as our headquarters. We've also rehabilitated 3 derelict sites as open spaces for recreation and sports. We're currently working on one more, a bigger one, 3,000 square meters. And we work a lot with street art and with murals, mostly inspired by the heritage of the neighborhood. We also focus very much on heritage education. We've run a summer school for the children of Khalifa since 2015. And we now also run a heritage education and industries program for the older children, the children who have now become teenagers. And the heritage industries program is also for craftspersons and designers. And the idea there is to look for ways to come up with products and activities that are inspired by heritage and that can actually generate an income. And we also run an annual heritage promotion program to get people to know about the Khalifa and to come and visit it. We ground this in research, mostly on an urban level. We started off with participatory research to understand the neighborhood of Al Khalifa. We now also have done major surveys and studies in 2 of the neighborhoods where we work. And based on those, we have come up with proposals for urban regeneration plans and conservation plans and management plans. And the idea there is to try and kind of link the work that we've done to optimize the effect. So this is the introduction, just to get you to know what we do. But today I would like to reflect on whether what we do is participatory. If you go to our website, you will find that we describe ourselves as participatory, integrative. Sometimes we say we're inclusive. And we kind of started off this way, and we've been haunted by this word ever since. And we're haunted by the infamous Einstein ladder. If those of you are not aware of it, it's basically a ladder that goes, evaluates the kind of participation that stakeholders are allowed to actually achieve, from manipulation, which is like the lowest of the low, to citizen control, and it goes from non-participation to tokenism to citizen power. I think with all the work that we do, I don't think we've ever gone beyond tokenism, which is quite frustrating. But then this was coined in 1969. Others have later tried to work on other more kind of nuanced understandings of participation. So we have, for example, the work of Susan White, who basically argues that you're never in one place. You kind of go up and down, and she talks about 4 degrees, the nominal one, which is almost like non-participation or tokenism. But then she also talks about what might potentially be instrumental, representative, and finally transformative. We claim to lie between the instrumental and representative. But then on another level, maybe we don't really care. And at the beginning, when we started to work, we read a lot in participation and the methods, etc. And we started to feel that it started to get us, when we started to work, we felt that we weren't really doing this the way we're supposed to be doing it. And we started to read up on it again. And there's a general critique of participation all the time, that it is placatory, it is tokenistic, etc. But then there's also the pushback of people who work on the ground and say, maybe we're not able to achieve what you theoretically feel is ideal, but we do something. We get something done. And now there's this kind of back and forth between this pragmatic kind of anti-academic approach and the approach that is more theoretical and idealistic. And I think one of the issues here is that those who work on the ground, like us, for example, who do a lot of things, who are quite interdisciplinary in the way we work, we don't have time to really document properly or to reflect properly, but we do have time to give you some general questions and ideas and musings, and this is what I'm going to attempt to do today. So I think the first issue here, because we are a heritage-oriented institution, is the question of the heritage mandate versus people's needs. I mean, this is a slide that I have taken from one of my earlier presentations, where I'm talking about a particular decorative feature that we discovered and how we uncovered it and what it means, etc. And you can see, and I think I like it because it shows you how kind of conservation kind of is almost like navel gazing. You look inwards, and it's Zen almost in the way you deal with a building in a very kind of intimate way. And it almost feels like an intrusion for the city to come in. This is like the old school kind of conservation. But we have to allow it in, because what affects the buildings affects the people and affects, I mean, they're interlinked somehow. And at the end of the day, we will, because we are a heritage, an organization mandated by heritage, we will do things that maybe others who are more focused on the community will find almost disgraceful, like fencing a building, for example. This is the first building that we conserved. And we also because we come to heritage with this kind of almost aesthetic and cultural appreciation of old buildings and of history, we come with our own biases. So the image on the left, for example, is something that we would be very happy to endorse. And look, we want people to live with heritage, no tourist bubble, etc., etc. But then if the building becomes like the building that we see on the right, we're kind of agitated. Although both serve the same purpose, both are for the service of the community, and both serve to keep the city living. And so we always have to kind of decide what to zoom in on with the city. Do we zoom in on this amazing skyline of Cairo, the city of the 1,001 minarets, or do we zoom in on what is happening to address the needs of everyday life and the transformations that are being brought about by the people to address the needs of everyday life, but there are also the transformations that are brought about by the government, and I will go into that. So this is the first issue. Who are we? We cannot get away from these issues, but we have to be mindful of them. As we should be mindful of the hierarchies and the power structures that exist in participation, consultation by design by consultation, whatever you want to call it. If we organize a participatory event or activity, we set the rules, whether we like it or not. We call it, we place the chairs in a certain way, we explain what we want to do, we ask people to respond to certain questions. But this kind of power structure is not just between us and the community that we're working with, it's within the community itself. Like this is a community meeting that we held to review the design of a neighborhood park that we want to build. And as you can see, everybody sitting there, they're all men. And so we have to learn to try and give and hear the voice, that they have the voices. We don't give voice to anyone, but hear the voices of the ones who do not speak as loud, such as women and children, etc. Then this brings us to another point, that there is no such thing as the community. And that community is not sitting there eagerly anticipating our arrival. First of all, this is a neighborhood. The neighborhood has many kind of internal currents within it. People who like each other, people who dislike each other, people who have certain interests and their conflict in other interests, etc. And it's also a neighborhood that has its own dynamics of survival and resilience. And if we do not understand it, if we do not tap into it, then we will not be able to get anything done. What you see here on the right is the first drawing for an intervention that we did in 2012. Basically, what happened was that people were popping into these sessions that we were organizing and the discussions. And at some point, one person came and said, oh, you know, we live in the street and we were inspired by what you do. And so we had this empty plot and derelict plot, and we've cleaned it up. And now we want to see what to do with it. So we said, okay, we'll help you. And we went and we proposed, you know, very romantically, this small park for children. And immediately, we started to see how naive we were. Where will we park our cars? The children will be noisy. Oh, no, we don't want you to do all this. We don't like the neighbors in the other street, so we just want you to build a fence, etc., etc. Oh, no, there's someone else coming in, and she's a famous politician, and she wants to build a building that like a kind of community center. At the end of the day, we left the plot is still empty, and nothing was done. So these are lessons that we learn along the way. that at some point we will come in conflict with someone because it is not a kind of cohesive community. This is another example. This is the neighborhood of Hataba where we were.
Dr. May, sorry to interrupt you. You have 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So this neighborhood is an endangered neighborhood because it has been listed as informal. It's listed as although it's historic because it's within a buffer zone of a monument. So the government has prevented conservation and rehabilitation for years and years and years. And we came in deciding, to try and save this neighborhood. And of course, not everybody wants it to be saved. The community itself, some people want to leave, some people want to stay, and it's very difficult to untangle this kind of intricate question. Another issue is that people tell you what they think you want to hear. So Al-Hataba is a very obvious example of that we have these meetings and everybody says, no, we want to stay, we will die if we leave. But we know that people are already trying to make arrangements to get the flats that they will be given elsewhere, even though they know that it might actually affect their quality of life. Another important lesson that we learned is that residents do not know everything. We have to triangulate our knowledge. This is another example. This used to be an empty plot that we converted into a football pitch after a number of community meetings based on the advice of the people who lived there. And they said, oh, we'll be very grateful. This was a garbage dump, etc. But the moment the football pitch started to function, everybody complained about the noise, and which is something that we should have anticipated. Another important issue there concerning the same project is that participatory design solutions will not win you design awards. If you look here to the picture on the left, you'll find that the entire football pitch is fenced. This is based on severe instructions from the community because the historic city hates a vacuum, and there are issues of security and unwanted users using the place. If you show this to any urbanist, they would say, what about the open space? This is not an open space, this is unacceptable. And also it's an ugly project, but there are other issues that we deal with. This is another example where in the neighborhood of Al-Hattaba, where we did this in literally in 2 weeks. The design itself was not participatory, but it was part of a participatory project where we were trying, it was a kind of trust building exercise to get people to know that we mean business. So we came in with a kind of present for the community, but we did not have the luxury of working on it in a participatory way. And we have issues with both we can talk about later. Then a very important question, is participation even possible under regimes such as ours? Participation assumes legal rights to be heard and the right for your opinion to be binding. Neither is guaranteed in many of the countries where we come from, and thus we can only talk about design through consultation, even though we ourselves as an organization work with the government. So in many cases, we find that we are walking a fine line between collaboration with the government and also co-optation. When the government does things that we find horrific, such as what you see in front of you, where a section of a historic cemetery is being torn down to make room for a highway, we have to kind of balance between trying to keep this relationship because we have other things that we want to do, and also taking a firm line. We also have to ask ourselves about the ripple effect of our presence in the neighborhood. The most extreme effect could be gentrification, but there will be some strange. So this is the local coffee shop, for example, and we have the people who come to visit us and our people coming and sitting there, men and women together in a neighborhood that is quite traditional. Not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to be aware of it. And then the last question, which I will leave open, which is what happens after we leave? Are we really able to guarantee that what we envision will happen? No, we're not. Then what do we do about that? And this I will leave open for discussion. And finally, these are our websites and social media pages if you're interested to know more. And these are all our partners and donors. A big thank you to all of them. Without them, none of the work would be possible. Thank you.